Welcome to my sixth game in the Intermezzo Season 12. This game is against Kimmo and Goldan. This is the last game to finish in my group, and before this game's completion, I am currently in first with 22 points. Goldan is in second with 17, and Kimmo is in fourth with 9 points. The person in third, Skywalker, has 13 points, so Kimmo can actually get out of relegation if he wins this game. And my standing is not set against Goldon. Like one of us can still advance. Either one of us can still advance, but Goldon has to win this game, and I have to lose it because Goldon can beat me on tie breaks in that case. Um, but with this in mind, I do want to let everybody know that I am playing with an objective in mind, and my objective is to either make Goldon second or worse, and I'm not actually caring about winning as much. So I know that might be a little controversial for some people, but I'm playing this league as an actual league and not an individual game. So a lot of my decisions are based on I'm trying to advance through gold and not as much trying to win through this game. Because all I need to do is if I come in second or better, or if Goldon comes in second or worse, there's no way that I can not advance. And it's kind of a lot easier to prevent somebody from winning than it is to win yourself sometimes. So with that in mind, a lot of my decisions may not be the best in terms of trying to win the game, but they are justified in the sense that I'm trying to win my league. Anyways, going from the leaders and wonders, again going from the back, we have Hollywood, supported by Marlene and Chaplin. We have Internet, pretty well supported by Pierre, and possibly Gates as well. There's an International Red Cross with Suez in the game. Mandela also as a cap for colonization strategy. And with Suez, there's still Maria Teresa, James Cook to support that as well. And then there's some pretty reasonable colonization leaders with Isabella, Barbarossa, Eleanor going to that colonization strategy. There's also Colossus, so this could be one of the few games where Colossus is quite good since there's a very well drawn out colonization plan. But there's no Sun Tzu, so it's kind of hard to see colonies unless you get a lot of help from other people. Kind of skipped this, but there's also Watt into Marie, and Marie is actually surprisingly good with Internet as well, since labs will also provide strength. And then just general, there's a Churchill at the top in case that you need it for the more militaristic plan. Basically, you could have a couple lines of basically the lines of strategy going down is that you can go colonization, you go one of the colonization leaders into Cook, into Mandela, or you can go more science heavy with like Gutenberg into Newton, into Gates, or something in that vein. It's not as clear cut. Colonization one is the only real clear cut leader path that there is. There's no real need for arenas. Because there's no Darwin, but then there's Pierre at the top. So something to be said there. Anyways, onto the game. My first picks are between Library, Engineering Genius, and Alexander the Great. As you can see, I took Library here. I don't think Engineering Genius is worth more than a leader or a wonder usually, so I only take it up as an extra card because I always want a leader or wonder first. Unfortunately, it leaves two pretty good cards for Kimmo, but if he does take this, then he also could leave Roman roads for Goldon, but yeah, I'm just going to have to accept the way that it is. So second is very good position here. Kimmo actually takes Engineering Genius and Acropolis and not Alexander. A little surprising to me, but must value it a little bit more. And although I have my doubts about Acropolis in a 4-player game, it's perhaps a little bit stronger in a 3-player game since you can have a little bit more of a greedy build in 3-player games. And then Goldon, he takes Alex and Roman roads. So this definitely works really well together in the sense that you stack extra yellow tokens, but it doesn't work well in the sense that it takes extra civil actions to finish Roman roads, takes extra civil actions to get a H1 leader out. But I definitely do like this play a lot. Anyways, for my first leader, I actually start by doing normal stuff, and then I actually take Caesar again. It's hard to take Boudica because of the Alexander bonus, and I didn't want to have to build a warrior with my first population. Not a huge fan of Ashoka or Moses either, so decided just to go with Caesar. Kind of the same reasoning as other games as well. I do think that taking a leader on one is probably a little bit better, and then I do kind of want to just try playing leaders that I don't play as much in order to kind of get a feel for them. And then Kimmo takes Moses, Alex, and then does normal stuff afterwards. Moses or Ashoka, both pretty reasonable. Um, they're both totally fine. I can see why he doesn't take Ashoka because he does take extra civil actions to take cards, but on a two-step wonder, I think it's possible that Ashoka is a little bit better than Moses, but they're both fine either way. And then Goldan also does normal stuff and then takes the urban growth. So here, gonna try and take advantage of my position, take advantage of my strength a little bit. Just the fact that I'll know certain events and maybe I can play around them. So I actually seed Cultural Influence first, which is pretty neutral, and then Uncertain Borders. I don't seed Raiders because I think there's a chance that I might not be the exact strongest, but because Kimmo has extra strength from Acropolis. But I think that it's very likely that Goldan will get hit by the Uncertain Borders. You can see here that I take Isabella, and wanted to pause before this happened, but I really thought about taking Gutenberg and then printing press on this turn, and then just spending the rest of my resources going for library, or building a couple steps in my library, because that would have been one each, or one action here, and then two more here. And the reason that I don't do this is because of the aforementioned. I'm not trying to play to win as much. I think that this is probably the better play in general, but I know that if you want to have more influence over the game, you want to have more strength, and having higher resource production, higher science is better than going for culture early. Because culture, you're playing defensively, whereas if I play with Isabella here and then go for more science production, I can more easily pressure Goldan with strength. So I go for Isabella here. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Caesar initially. I also kind of figure that maybe I can get the cartography later if I really wanted to, and then get some colonies, or at least block the colonies in itself. And I figured the extra resource production is better than the extra seeding, so start with that. And my only other option was to probably build two steps and then take the breakthrough or something. Building two steps, by the way, would give me food corruption, but I don't mind because I would also not be in consumption yet, so it's totally fine. And then I do the two steps with Isabella, so I'm not in corruption at all. So because I left this nice pairing here and there's no lab yet, Kimmo does Moses stuff and then elects Gutenberg and then takes the printing press, which is, I think, a really good situation for him that I did leave on the table. Kind of unnecessarily builds a warrior, I believe. I don't think he needed to do anything like that. Deck's not going to flip before his next turn, so it's really unnecessary. And then Goldan does normal stuff for the most part. In this position, I probably would not have taken the frugality and probably just build two steps on the Roman roads. The fact that you have to take extra actions to use Alexander to build the Roman roads might be a cause to actually just not take extra yellow cards. In any case, I don't seed here. I was going to have some issues with corruption because I wanted to take these swordsmen. And if I flipped extra resources in any way, then I would not have been able to deal with my corruption. I do know that I have a couple strength events in my hand. I have Uncertain Borders in here. So I want to set myself up to be a little bit stronger than my opponents at this point. Kimmo seeds, flips development of planning. So I'm pretty free to seed if I want to use civil life to, planning reveal civil life. So I'm pretty free to seed again if I get like the temple event or something. And I don't have to worry about the temple event, is what I mean to say. So Kimmo finishes his Acropolis, then starts going for his printing press, saves the science, not the resource, then takes Theocracy and Rich Land. Um, I generally avoid going for theocracy, but uh, could be quite good with could be quite good to with the Acropolis. The fact that he wants to build more printing presses, using Gutenberg as much as possible, could be a very strong way of playing. It just means that he's not going to have that many civil actions. But I can definitely respect it because you'll have extra population because you don't need to use the happy faces as much. So yeah. Anyways, gold on seeds, flips development of religion. So I can use civil life for the extra pop for this religion. Takes code of laws, and then Saladin as well, and then increases pop, and actually has a bunch of corruption. So kind of a rough turn to do that by taking both code of laws and Saladin and electing. You could have gone out of corruption if you increased population one more time as opposed to electing. Um, but that's the choice you make, basically. Is it would you prefer two resources or prefer the civil action next turn? And I think I'd probably prefer the civil action. So yeah. You can also see here that if Goldan had built the two steps last turn, he would have been able to get out of corruption by finishing Roman roads instead of increasing population. Could have like taken Code of Laws, used it, taken Saladin, elected him, and then I believe you would still have enough to finish Roman roads here. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm not going to go check back, but I do believe they would have gone out of corruption if you finish Roman roads and then increase pop or something, or not exactly sure. But I probably wouldn't have not elected Saladin if that were the case. Deck is still on AJ events, so I do seed Reign of Terror here, knowing that I'm going to get Stronger Swordsman. And it's really nice to get Dull Politics here to get a Legion. I was just going to go for Swordsman itself, and one of the reasons that I can go for Strength is because there's no other military text that they can pick up anytime soon. So I feel like I'm in a pretty advantageous position to hit these Strength events at the moment. So I go for Swordsman, or first I use the Religion event basically. Go for Swordsman, get a little bit stronger, and then just take the Iron here. Definitely arguable to maybe take. I could possibly take Silk Road or Monarchy in that sense, but I think Iron is a strong tech. 5 science next turn. Might as well increase my resource production. And I'm kind of eyeing this Forbidden City as my wonder instead of Silk Road, basically, because I do want to get out of this 5 civil action land. Kimmo Seeds hits Call to Arms, so I did not seed this event, I believe, and it's a strength event that does negatively affect them, so nice to see that. He takes the Temple event, builds a library with Gutenberg, gets a really, really, really cheap theocracy for only 2 science, so you can definitely see why he went for it now. And then takes the reserves. Again, not 100% sure about this one, but there isn't much else to take. I think in my position with him, I'd take the rich land. I get that the reserve system gives you food, but you don't, at 4 civil actions, you don't really have the opportunity to play slow actions like this. I'm imagining that he's using this reserves for food to build another printing press soon. But there's still like a couple irrigations and irons and stuff, and when you're on this kind of build with just like low printing press, you want to build up irrigations, and I feel like you should just take the rich land instead and get your population out that way. There isn't anything on the row, so I do kind of understand where he's coming from. That if he wants to spend his civil actions next turn, he wants to build another library. But I still think reserves is kind of slow and unnecessary here. At the same time, though, there's a lot of culture production really early, and he's getting to a point where this could be run away if he's not really in check. But at the same time, I just don't care. This is like a really strong position. This could be a really strong culture position, and I'm not planning on ever really checking it. I wouldn't mind if Kimmo won this game. All right. Anyways, Goldan does not seed as the weakest. Increases pop. Reveals allegiance, so now he is the strongest. And then starts building the Roman roads. Kind of, definitely a little bit slow to start this. I feel like he could have finished this a long time ago. Um, but the actions that he took, with the extra corruption and stuff, if he didn't take that, he would have finished it this turn and then could have used his last action to basically elect Saladin here. But instead, he uses this extra action to take rich land, and this is kind of what I mean. It's like you got an extra civil action, but you're taking two delayed resources as opposed to taking the immediate corruption. So we can kind of see that just immediately that taking the corruption wasn't really worth it there, as opposed to just finishing Roman roads. So there I seeded Knowledge of the Ancients. I plan on going for this Forbidden City since I don't really want to be in 5 civil action territory. Not really looking for this monarchy since I plan on also spending 5 science for iron. So I figured since I'm going to get a second wonder, it should be pretty good for me. I'm not at the highest science production with only 3. It does benefit everybody, but I do think that I'm at least going to be in a position where my uh, knowledge of the ancients is a little better than everybody else's, or on average, it'll be a little bit better. So, because I want to remain the strongest, I increase pop, go for a legion here, take the warfare, and then take the forbidden city. Again, I really like warfare when it's on civil action. It might not be the best for 3 players since there's a lot more military actions in the game, but I'm not taking a military action leader. There aren't any anyways. I have Isabella. Um, and I want to be able to draw 3 cards per turn going into H2, since it'll be very consistent with my plan of pressuring Goldan if I get like a good tactic or a war or aggressions or something. So I definitely want this warfare. All right, Kimmo Seeds as the weakest, and he gets hit by this Reign of Terror. He does use the reserves for food, and then also definitely does do the Gutenberg thing with printing press. I still don't feel great about it in general. I don't really like it at all, but I do wish that he had this rich land instead. He wasn't going to be. It wasn't going to have a huge issue with the corruption anyways, so yeah, I don't know. All right, Long finally finishes Roman roads, takes alchemy, takes irrigation, takes rich land, and is afraid of being the weakest, which is totally fair. I seed my 1 event, hit my new deposits, so it's pretty good for me, and I'm going to go for some iron here. And then I actually start Forbidden City instead. My reasoning is I want to finish Forbidden City next turn and develop the warfare. So I didn't want. I wanted to. If I upgrade one more time, I wouldn't have the resources to finish Forbidden City. I'd only have 7 instead of the total of 8. So I figured that finishing Forbidden City next turn will pay off. And then I also want to use the 1 action afterward. I also want to use one of my actions to develop the warfare, so I start drawing 3 cards in H2. Kimmo flips in certain borders, so some of these events really are turning my way with Caesar. This time around, I did play Caesar a little bit better. I was able to actually take advantage of his extra seating, even though I kind of got rid of him right away. Kimmo just using the Gutenberg action for more culture, takes a Meji, and takes irrigation. Eats corruption, so it is kind of rough to do that on 3 resource production. But he does have enough to finish Himeji next turn. And I imagine that he wants to be in a game where he's playing very defensive, and Himeji does help with that a lot. If he kind of knew my objective, though, which is to play against Goldan, it probably wouldn't matter too much for him. It might have been better to go for irrigation, get even greedier. But at the very least, this puts him in a position where he probably feels very, very safe. All right, Golden Seeds flips Knowledge of Ancients. So I did get a little bit more. Kimmo gets this about the same, Kimmo gets the same, but it helps a little bit. And then Goldan goes for some theaters, which is probably too early. I think going for theaters this early is just unnecessary on your economy. He has irrigation, he has alchemy. Seems like a much better thing to increase your production as opposed to increasing culture right here. Here I seeded Rebellion, knowing that I have the Forbidden City. And I couldn't really bid very much since I don't have any cards. Kimmo does win this, so good on him. And then Warfare, take Engineering Genius. So if I did go for the upgrade last turn, I would have had enough because of the knowledge of the ancients, but I couldn't really guarantee that. Kimmo goes for some knights, and then reveals medieval army. He probably could have gotten away with just finishing Himeji here if he wanted to, but it doesn't really matter either way. Also, possibly could have gone for these Code of Laws, which I think would probably be pretty important, to be honest, just to get out of four civil actions, but does skip it, and you know, just doesn't get it right now. Still uses Gutenberg for culture. Not 100% sure that I would do this either, since he doesn't have the population for it. But it does pick up a couple of the resource getting stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably fine to waste it. He has cultural influence, stuff like that. But not a ton of resources right now. Not a ton of actions. Yeah. But I guess he also needs to use alchemy to get rid of the cards in hand. I still feel like Code of Laws is probably better than taking at least one of these. Alright, 4A flips, not one of the ones I seeded, so you can see why Goldan's probably taking strength. Still wanted to part of the strength events. Destroys the temple, builds a drama, not 100% sure about that one for sure. That seems really unnecessary. Like really, really unnecessary actually. Because these temples can still be good to upgrade to organized religion or something. This is just very, very culture greedy, and you're in a place where you're at the beginning of Age 2 where you really want to increase your production out of the base production. Grabs knights, and then gets a little bit stronger. He seems very concerned about strength events in general, which I did seed a couple. But there's only raiders, there's barbarians, border conflict, crusades are the only ones left. I think he could have been fine just at like 8 strength, and not take the strength here. So it's only if he took, I mean, I'm the one who seeded raiders, so he's avoiding that one. But only if he seeded border conflict is this really, really worth it. And we can see crusades is in my hand, so it's the only other strength event that matters. Yeah, here I seeded prosperity. Basically, my idea was I wanted something that came later than the Age 1 events. It was pretty neutral. I still wanted to keep seeding for culture for the most part, just to kind of keep up. And you'll see that I go for a scientific method here. I wish that I had enough civil actions to take Newton as well. Well, I mean, I do, but yeah. If I do take Newton, I go into corruption because I can only upgrade once. And I still probably should have taken him because Newton is a really good military leader in a sense. I'm skipping like cannons in Republic too, so Newton could be really good for my civil actions and stuff like that. Really good science bonus as well. +2 science, probably better than +1 resource. And I don't take him because of my corruption issues. Basically, I would have 5 less. I would have 5 fewer blue cubes, and I'd be just barely in corruption. But I think I really should have taken him because just having this, I would still have +7 science. Next turn, I can go up a little bit more, and I think it would have eased off on a lot of my civil action costs later on. So very questionable play to not take Newton here. I'm also skipping the cannons, which also feels pretty bad, but I did think that going for high science production, high resource production, this is how you can pressure militarily. I'm also skipping Code of Laws as well. Anyways, I do get two really, really good tactics here. So obviously feels terrible that I'm skipping first cannons. Um, but yeah, I mean, I just decided to get my production up because, like I said, that's kind of what I was feeling at the moment. All right, hold on. Plays Cultural Heritage, goes for Republic, switching out of the Theocracy, which I think makes a lot of sense actually. It was this really cheap Republic too, so it's pretty nice. And then starts his Magi to get out of corruption, takes cannons, and wave nationalism and frugality. So I did leave some really, really good cards in the row for Kimmo again, and he takes advantage of it. Unfortunately, he took a little bit more than I wanted to, but there's no way I can expect him to keep wave and cannons on there, so Newton's going to fall off, and I never expected him to stay, but I never had a chance to take him. And yeah. Goldan Seeds goes for strong as the strongest, develops and wins it, which is pretty good for him. I couldn't really bid much for it. I didn't really want to spend more than one resource, so yeah, it wasn't really that important for me. So yeah, I let him win it pretty cheaply. Then he goes for coal and Harvard. So definitely picking up those bottlenecks, finally increasing his production. I still feel like it would have been better if he started the previous turn and not going on for this religion and drama. It just seemed really unnecessary. He still had alchemies in hand. He could have gone for that. But yeah, he went for a little bit of culture reduction, and but he is now catching up in his resource department. Anyways, I see Crusades here. No real reason. Thinking that I could probably be one of the stronger ones if I know about it, and I wanted to push this. I just want to keep pushing. Can't really play develops. I don't have any defense cards to play. Didn't really want to seed for Iconoclasm yet, so yeah. You can see I took this Justice System. I could have waited. I could have probably taken this Conmon instead and waited for next turn, but Justice System does give me my 6 civil action anyways. I think that I can still get another Conmon later, and I don't really. Okay, the biggest reason I take this Justice System is because I'm actually eyeing this Ocean Liner. I don't have my food set yet, so I can't really take Conmon here and Ocean Liner. So I do want to start getting my population. It's good for a lot of things. I can either build urban buildings or, more importantly, I'm looking to build more units. And Ocean Liner is a really, really good population solution. And I think Justice System is also really good here just to increase my civil actions. I don't really need the urban gross, so I could have taken Engineering Genius, I was in corruption anyway, so I'd probably have to spend a turn doing something. So I figured this was a good way to get out of corruption and still take Ocean Liner. Couldn't really take any of these yellow cards, so again, I'm leaving a lot of really good things for Kimmo. But once again, I'm trying to build up my presence in a military sense. And then don't need to discard because I have the library, and pick up basically the last good cannon tactic. The only one that I haven't seen so far is Defensive Army, so I know that cannons are super, super important to me, but it's very possible that they're not actually that important to Goldan. Because if he hasn't seen any cannon tactics, or if he does go for it, he needs both riflemen and cannons. He doesn't really have the science yet to go for it. All right, Kimmo Seeds. Floats fast, and he wins it with priority. Pretty easy to do since he has the wave here. I couldn't bid too much because I technically needed to defend against Goldan, so I didn't really want to spend a bunch of resources as well because I also want to finish my Ocean Liner. So this is really good seed for Kimmo and a really good pickup since one of the things that he really needs is just more population. Finishes Himeji and builds a couple more units with the wave. So Kimmo definitely in a really good position. Has a really good yellow bank. Actually has pretty good production as well, and can even start going for it. then takes the Engineering Genius, which I probably would have taken originally, in my opinion. But he is eyeing the Suez, so maybe Engineering Genius is a little bit better. Actually, he's definitely eyeing the Suez with a couple colonies, so Engineering Genius is definitely better. Yeah. Anyways, Kimmo's now the strongest, so Goldan does not cede. Finally builds up his food production, takes Rifleman and Kalman. Oh, and increases his resource production. Not exactly sure why he's taking strength here. There's basically no reason. Yeah, he must really want to seed next turn in case I don't get stronger, but I think I'd rather take a civil action almost all the time here. So here I see terror. Oh, I see iconoclasm. It's late enough now that I think that the deck won't flip before H3, and I know that Kimmo is going to want to go for Cook eventually. Cook or Maria, but probably Cook. So I'm thinking that the leaders that I want, I'm just thinking that I can play around the iconoclasm here. Couldn't quite see terrorism yet. Sorry, I thought I did play it, but I'm a little bit behind on Kimmo than Goldan. So play the iconoclasm. Yeah, I pretty much thinking that I can ride out Isabella as long as possible. Maybe I'll just go for Rose Pierre or something, or I can go for Maria very, very late with the ocean liner. Yeah, anyways, I do want to finish my ocean liner, get my population going, build more resource production, and just increase pop again. I could take the strategy because Kimmo does really need it, and I probably should in general, but I don't. This is like a pretty easy denial though, and I think that it's probably correct to deny in almost every game because there's no reason that I should allow Kimmo to easily get out of this military action predicament. So again, this is one of those actions that I take that benefit Kimmo a lot, and it's really unnecessary to do this, generally speaking. Flip. So here, I'm feeling. Oh, also, when I did finish this, I do. Okay, sorry. Going back a little bit, I did think about taking the cannons here. It meant that I wouldn't finish the ocean liner, but these cannons are really valuable for me. And I actually remember now that I thought that Goldan was going to revolt this coming turn. He has 6 science, has constitutional monarchy, took the strength. So it does make like a really good time to revolt. So because he wants to save the science, because he can't really increase the science production this turn, I figured that saving the 6 science was a really, really big deal for him. So I figured that it'd be really beneficial for Goldan to revolt here, knowing that I also picked up a lot of the cannon tactics. Like I said, the only one that he can get is defensive army, and with this science production, the fact that riflemen, cannons, and Kanman take a lot of science meant that he couldn't really imagine going for the defensive army in any case because it just takes so much science on what he has right now. So I take the gamble here. I ignore the cannons. I could have basically gone for them this turn as well and gotten to be the strongest and maybe start threatening some possible wars and stuff or aggressions. But I take the very greedy route and just increase my resources, have good science. I'm pretty much fine with all this and expecting to take Konmon and stuff next turn. Like I said though, I probably should take the strategy, but I ignore it. And of course, give it to Kimmo. Wealthy comes up. I do bid pretty heavily for this because I'm kind of thinking that I'm probably still going to get those cannons. Still thinking that Goldan's going to revolt. And I don't really have a ton of... I don't have a ton of cards, and you see I won it for 5. So I actually do spend 2 warriors instead of the card, or 2 swordsmen instead of the card. Didn't necessarily need to, because I do have the card, but this way I can still defend from Gul'dan if he puts on aggression, and I'll probably just rebuild his cannons anyway, so it shouldn't be a big deal for me to send that much. Kimmo does take the Suez, goes for a fourth printing press, and takes all the good cards on one civil action. Good for his happiness, good for his military actions, good for because he doesn't have any resources, and he's going to have 5 plus 9 plus 3, so enough to finish Suez next turn. Seems very reasonable for him to do. And there's also an argument that he might want to develop iron at some point in order to make it easier on his blue bank, since having vast and having bronze makes this really hard on your resources. But he has time still, and he may or may not want to do it. But just a thought that maybe you want to spend 5 science to just make it easier on your blue bank to get resources. So Goldan seeds plus prosperity, pretty even for everybody. And he does not revolt. He takes the cannons, takes Napoleon, goes for him, and then goes for the cannon. We know that he doesn't have Napoleonic. We know that he doesn't have mobile artillery. So I kind of feel like this is not a good play to do this in Goldan's position. But he will be able to finish Harvard next turn. He is the strongest right now, and it does hurt me a lot because I don't go for cannons this turn. But I do feel like going for the revolution would have been very strong here. In any case, in order for me to get stronger, so I put in the terrorism because I knew the Crusades was going to come up soon anyways, and this actually puts me in a position to pretty much win Crusades no matter what. Go over the Conmon, build back a little bit so I won't be vulnerable. Architecture, breakthrough, reserves, get a little bit more resources, and efficient upgrade for the eventual food production. So basically just take a bunch of the yellows, not the revolutionary idea since it's a little far away. And then, Kimmo goes for scientific method, just to use Gutenberg again. Goes for Cook and then finishes Suez. Gets the inhabited territory, I believe, or historic territory. So the fact that I did deny it does reduce his resource production a little bit. Makes it harder on his blue bank. So Kimmo, he's in a really good spot. He has 6 resource production, pretty good science, pretty good food production. But it's not overwhelming. He does have a huge cultural lead over me. It's about 80, but like I said, I don't really care, and I feel like I have made it very easy for him to be in this position where he's very strong defensively, and just allowed a lot of these things. But of course, he has the opportunity to play this way because he has Himeji he can play, and he's even stronger than me right now, and he doesn't really need to feel pressured at any point. Pretty sure though that he doesn't have any tactic. Otherwise, these riflemen might have been a little bit more of a priority for him. Yeah, but at the same time, you probably want to finish Suez right away to get the resource production, so he probably couldn't afford it at the same time. But it does leave him in a somewhat tricky spot if I did deny the rifleman, which he probably does need. Right, Goldan seeds, flips the Stark. Kimmo wins this, so even more resource production. Finishes Harvard, takes Rough Idea, and just plays it since there's not much else to do. So science is in a good spot. Has enough to go for constitutional monarchy next turn. Yeah. Anyways, I didn't want to seed and flip iconoclasm right away, so I just offer the pact. I kind of figured that this was going to get rejected, but I didn't want to offer it to Goldan, even though our science is about the same. So yeah, I just offered it to Kimmo. Anyways, go for take and go for selective breeding, just to get a little bit more population out, and then I would need to anyways at some point. go for cavalrymen, build 2. And I'm thinking that I can still at least go for Napoleonic later with rockets and stuff. So yeah. And discard the fortifications. I could have taken Maria here, but I think it would have been really obvious that that Iconoclasm were in the deck if I took her and didn't go for her. So I'm thinking that I either can take Robespierre if communism comes out, or just take Gaudi, and then yeah. But like I said, or something I want to note here is that I have both the War over Territory and War over Technology, a couple aggressions, and as soon as I get rockets, I have a big strength upgrade, big strength boost, and I do actually feel like I'm in a really, really good spot here to basically do a lot of damage to Goldan if I want to. I know that he can't really have a good tactic. If he goes for Kanmon, he doesn't have a ton of science left over, so I'm feeling like I'm gonna be able to meet my objective of pushing him down. You know, Kimmo has a huge lead. The only way for Goldan to win the league is if he beats Kimmo, and if I'm the one who's disrupting him with these wars, then it's basically going to be impossible for him to do that. So I lose Isabella, of course. Kimmo goes for strategy, getting more military actions, takes a rifleman, which I did not need to leave again, but I did. So increases food production, and yeah. Anyways, flips Iconoclasm, so really good spot to do so since the age just ended. And if I did accede, then Iconoclasm would hit my Isabella, so I'm glad that I waited. Anyways, goes for Conmont, increases food production, and grabs the reserves. And yeah, doesn't have enough science to go for things like architecture, journalism. So definitely see the efficient action taking here. It is possible, actually not possible, it is very likely that Goldan should probably have taken these team sports as well, since he's in a situation where he's lacking happy faces. He's trying to be, if by not going for these team sports, he's really trying to draw to Marlene and Chaplin earlier, just because this population that he has isn't really accessible. And yeah, so I think probably going for these team sports would be pretty prudent instead of increasing pop. So yeah, this is a little bit on the greedy side, but there's also pro sports here, so maybe you can go for those instead. But yeah, it should be noted that taking happiness solution is probably really important when you don't have one going into age 3. Anyways, the rockets are on the row, and I kind of told you what my objective was, and it's to hurt Goldan. So go for the rockets. Have to disband a lab, or have to disband a farm, unfortunately. But I push enough strength with the Napoleonic army here. If you look at Goldan, you know, he has 10 resources, 6 science, so could go for riflemen, maybe get defensive army since it's the last one really. Maybe there's like Churchill or something that can give him a little bit extra boost, but there's not a lot of cards in here that can really help him out. You know, only 6 science. There's not a lot of tactics that he can possibly have right now. Best one would probably be like classic army, I guess. Classic army or defensive are the only real options. And he also has to deal with his happiness issue, so if he wants to get any stronger with more population, he has to disband. So 37, very intimidating against Goldan's current 10. And I think no matter what happens here, there's going to be a big economic loss for Goldan. Alright, Kimmo Seeds flips economic progress, which is definitely one of the best things that Goldan could have here, since it now gives him the ability to increase pop twice and have 2 free population. Goes for the rifleman. Goes for the cannons. and takes Cavalryman and actually reveals Modern Army. So yeah, that was a good draw for Kimmo. Also a good draw for Goldan since all he needs to do is take these tanks and he'll also have access to it. And yeah, I mean everybody has access to my Napoleonic anyways, but pretty nice to have this tactic off your first draw to know that you have to go for it. Still pretty weak, and you know, we can see that there's a pretty big difference in strength even if I went for Kimmo. So if I were playing for the win, it's very likely that I would have tried to disrupt Kimmo a lot. Um, but like I said, going for Goldan as much as possible, and that's kind of what I'm going to just press on. All right, trade agreement also has a modern army, so definitely very, very fortunate I think for both of them. At the same time, I think that this doesn't really help him too much since it's outdated. Could have pretty much had like any tactic here. I would have done something. Um, Churchill's also on the row here as well, so that could also help out as well. Um, if he went for Churchill, tanks, and went for either one of them, I think would probably be pretty good. It does take a lot of actions to get both, but it's very possible that you would need it for the science. So these are definitely some pretty good draws on the row. But it's only a war over it's only a war over territory. It's not the end of the world. Probably still needs a happiness solution. So I might not be able to afford taking something for 3 civil actions. But I think that it should be necessary to take these tanks in some way, since you have the modern army at the very least. So taking like these two could help a lot. Still going for riflemen, not being able to play either one of them for a bit, but yeah, just to kind of shore up your potential defenses later on. Anyways, upgrades. Could have actually straight up built. Takes the patriotism, plays it, builds another rifleman, builds another cannon, and increases pop twice, and then takes team sports. So skipping out on the tanks is a very interesting choice. I don't know if I agree with it. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that at all. But I have a pretty big win here. I'm going to take 3 yellow cubes, and if you didn't build the extra cannon, it would be 4. So it's going to hurt a lot no matter what. Still think the tanks would have been very, very useful. But yeah, anyways, this definitely is going to hurt his economy a lot. And these team sports did come down for him, can go for them. So that's pretty nice. So I take those 3 cubes. I thought about going for War of Technology as well, but I figured that this was enough damage. I haven't drawn any H3 cards, and instead I just go for a Plunder. It's not the most powerful, and here I probably should have actually taken the food so that I can increase population with food next turn, but I want it to be more difficult for Goldan to be able to rebuild stuff. So just go for the aggression. It's good enough. And then here I transition to PR. And one of the big reasons I do that is because I want to keep up the strength difference, maybe threatening this infiltrate, threatening wars and stuff, and yeah, I just want to be as threatening as possible in the strength matter. Like I said, I did not care. I'm gonna keep saying this, which is I'm just gonna try and keep pressuring Goldan on strength. Take the Air Force, take the military theory to kind of keep following up with that line. Camo Seeds flips Carm Wave. Goes for Churchill, which is very, very good for him since he needs the science for it. Kind of needs the science. Needs the resources to kind of catch up a little bit, but not too much. And it's just a good overall leader for him. There's a possibility he could have gone for Mandela, but it does not a discount. So yeah, especially disbanding mines and stuff for population seems a pretty reasonable way to try and keep up in strength. Um, Kimmo gets Marlene. The fact that so many leaders came down so early, really nice for them. Marlene is definitely the best leader for Goldan, so pretty nice to pick that up. Goes for more culture production, takes a military buildup, and then disbands some stuff to use it right away. Doesn't need to build the knight because of Marlene's bonus, and Iconoclasm can't hit again. So just trying to use the maximum amount for the of the military buildup. He's also in a position where he can now just upgrade one tank or something to get quite a bit stronger. Basically, would just one tank upgrade or building one tank would give him like plus 17 strength, I think. So definitely threatening a lot of defense now if tanks come up. If I can deny tanks, I can really pressure his strength again. But I don't have any War of Cultures or anything. I do have this War of Tech, but it's not really the best right now. I could do it, getting an extra Napoleonic army or something. But I'm thinking at this point that Goldan pretty much has no way of pressuring Kimmo, so I might as well start trying to play for a second. And one of the things that I do is that I have a couple of reasonable impacts, and I do want to get this Olympics out as well. So this seems like a reasonable time to just try and draw cards, pick up some science, and play my good impacts. All right, National Pride. Kim was always going to win that. Go for my third arena. Take the satellites because impact. I just put in impact of progress. And I also get the revolutionary idea. And I'll take the democracy as well. Maybe build another one. But I didn't really have a lot else to do since there's no other urban buildings that I might want to build. There was a pretty good chance that I should have gone for this architecture instead of the satellites. But I'm kind of thinking that I'm trying to save my science for these two in the upcoming future. I still can war with two air forces next turn if I draw one. So I'm not too pressured from the military theory yet. This does provide me strength, and there's still a chance for some colonies in the deck. I did draw a lot of them, but Kimmo clearly wanted a bunch. He had Cook. There's still a chance. Then I just draw Impact of Harmony, which should also be really good for me. Goldan already got a lot of population out, but he had extra yellow cubes from the develops Alex and Roman Roads, so he did only lose the 3 that he initially had. So he's still not going to be able to get out very much more population, maybe one more. But Impact of Harmony should be good for me since I have Ocean Liner and stuff. Terrorism flips, so I do get that. Unfortunately, their buildings are super cheap, but still pretty good. Kimmo goes for civil service, tanks, modern infantry. So he does deny the ability for Goldan to get any stronger. I believe I could have denied the tanks as well at some point, but I didn't really bother. Yeah, I probably should have, but I didn't bother, so it's fine. Kimmo does it for me. And he proceeds to continue to get stronger. He is threatening any defense with modern army, with air force, has plenty of resources, that kind of stuff. I believe, yeah, Goldan does get a little bit stronger, switches to Napoleonic army, has 3 of them instead, knows that he can't go for modern anymore, does use the resources for his last population basically, and then takes computers. Here I see Impact of Government. Should be a little bit better than Goldan. Can't really get his impact population much higher unless it's with military theory, or government much higher unless it's with military theory. And I'm a little bit ahead in that, so it's pretty safe. Poly Strength comes out, and I finally get a war. but there's not a lot of cards left. I'm not really expecting much. And with the terrorism hit, I figured that I might as well evaluate my harmony this turn. And then also use this for my impact of progress. So getting the 16 plus the other 12 is 28 points in my favor against Goldan. I don't leave a lot of resources left, but I figured that this was a good time to do it. And I can still see it impact Harmony next turn, or at least threaten to if I didn't draw something better. And in this case, Variety is a very, very, very good impact for me as well. And then I play the Rev Idea, but I probably should have taken the movies instead. Something to build next turn. Takes 9 resources, so probably a little better just to take the movies there. And then I drew so many wars, but they're all too late. Kimmo takes Democracy, goes for another printing press. I mean, he doesn't need to do anything. He has such a huge cultural lead that nothing really matters. Ages, and then Goldan doesn't have a lot of things to do with his resources too much. Internet sucks, but Empire State is pretty good. He has highest culture production and highest resource production. So, yeah. I mean, he has to take it now and finish it. Otherwise, he risks not being able to get the full 16. And he takes efficient upgrade. So, at this point in time, I believe Goldan has not seeded any impacts. Kimmo has seeded 1, and I have seeded 2. So I'm actually feeling like I'm in a pretty good position, even though I'm a little bit behind. My impacts are really good. Progress is really good. This variety that I'm going to put in is really good. The reason that I don't play for Harmony is because Goldan knows about it and can still, disband a couple things at the end of the turn, go up to 5 in each. You can just build like 2 religions or something. And he can't get really stronger anyways. So I figured he might be playing around Harmony. And yeah. So play for the variety. It's going to be really good no matter what. I can even take this multimedia if I wanted to and go for the more variety. But I also have government and progress in here, so I could also go for military theory. And yeah. Something I should probably note though is that I'm going to end up behind at the end of my turn pretty much no matter what, even though my impacts are going to get me up a lot. I should probably note that Goldan still has a chance of winning with one combination, and we'll actually talk about it at the end. He has one combination that can win, and I didn't really consider it too much until after my turn. I go for the military theory because it's worth more raw points in the deck, but I probably should have calculated more on my worst case scenario again. But I've already met my objective, which was let Kimmo, or I mean, not really let. Like Kimmo totally was fine the whole entire game. Didn't need to feel pressure at all or anything. And I never drew any wars and stuff to kind of correct in that regard, anyways. So, but my main objective of Kimmo winning the game, Goldan not taking first, totally fine. And I kind of didn't put a lot of effort into a lot of these last turns. But see the progress, or sorry, see the variety. Take the multimedia because I don't know. But instead, I actually go for the military theory, increase for agriculture, and then just take progress stuff basically. I figured that Kimmo can probably just deny the reserves so that Goldan doesn't get it, and I didn't want him. I didn't want Goldan to possibly have extra things for progress and variety. And then I also increased my strength just enough with this military theory to possibly block strength, which could have been one of Kimmo's seeds. So, yeah. Anyways, Kimmo seeds. Gets freedom of movement. I think he didn't do anything with it. Gets one more pop, builds one more library, and then builds another farm. So completely ignores harmony, completely ignores industry, but possibly playing for the agriculture there. I'm expecting him to have played agriculture there. And then he takes the Air Force and the reserves, and well, the computers as well. Goldan does seed again, so impact agriculture does flip. So Kimmo probably just played it that turn. Goldan goes for computers, plays in dominant arts, upgrades it, and then also goes for a temple. So this increases his harmony up to 20, increases variety a little bit as well. Not exactly sure why he went for this farm, possibly because of balance, is my thought. And then goes for one more temple as well. So definitely losing out in competition if that were the case, but does increase his culture production just a little bit higher than Kimmo's, which is also definitely could be relevant. I start out 12 points behind Goldan, but I have a lot of points impacts. And yeah, so first is variety, get an extra 6. Culture comes up, which first off, Goldan only seeded 2 impacts, or sorry, he only seeded 1 impact. So in theory, only one of these should have come up, which was one of culture or science. But culture does come out, which was really the worst case scenario for me because I did not expect it at all. That means Kimmo seeded this one because Goldan definitely played for science last turn, and because Goldan, because that this culture comes out, I actually kind of recognize that I'm not going to come up with enough points because I know that science is also in here as well, and this was definitely my worst case scenario. And I actually could have played around this by, instead of going for the military theory, going for multimedia and getting a little bit more science that way. So yeah, because both of these did come out, now I'm actually behind a lot, which is much more expected, much worse than I expected for sure. And even though I have really good impacts with progress and government, it's not going to be enough now that I'm 27 behind. So because I went for the military theory and I didn't consider the worst case scenario enough, even though this progress is absolutely huge difference, I actually come up just a little bit short and I take third this game instead of second as I expected. But if I went for multimedia, impact of science wouldn't have not been available, so maybe he would have played a different impact. But I'm not 100% sure, especially since Goldan, he's using a lot of military actions and have a lot of cards. This might have been his only play. But again, I kind of put myself in a position where I didn't play against my worst case scenarios, and I should have went for the multimedia instead, just so that it would essentially be a 14-point swing if science were seeded. So um, I'm not exactly sure if I would have won based on maybe a different impact that Goldan could have had. But because I didn't play around this, I left this option on the table because I didn't consider the fact that Kimmo might have played culture, um, that I would fall behind. Also, I could have played in a way where I also got plus 13 culture with the multimedia. I believe I had enough resources to do so, but I could be wrong. Actually, no. There's no way I can get. I only had. Yes, I could have. I could have played multimedia, and I could have gotten a multimedia and a religion out. So I could have played in a way where I also got plus 13 culture, maybe blocking Kimmo as well, um, or at least forcing him to go up to 14, so that Goldan would more easily be able to do it. So there's a couple ways I could have played that last turn. And my biggest issue was that I spent my science on military theory, going for progress and government. But multimedia would have blocked science and culture very well, in a sense. Um, I, if I went for culture, though, I would have lost out in agriculture, so maybe it wouldn't 100% be worth it most of the time. Um, but yeah, didn't play around some impacts, and I got punished for it. But at the same time, I met my number one objective, which was have Goldan not be first, and Goldan was not first. So at the end of this game, the standings are as follows. I still finished the league in first, Goldan is second, and Kimmo gets out of relegation, coming in third, a little bit over Skywalker. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this series. I know that this game was probably a little controversial in terms of decisions that I made, but this is just how I play. I consider the whole. Well, I mean, I consider the Intermezzo Championship as a league, and I'm trying to play for advancement as opposed to the placing in an individual game. I hope that's not too offensive for too many of you, but that's just how I play the game. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed watching my games from the Intermezzo Season 12, and I'll catch you in the next season in the International Championship.